Hi, John Airy. This is Watch This Review with a video response to your contest slash, I guess, kind of channel review. For people not familiar with John and his channel, Articulation Times, he runs a kind of aggregate figure news source where he checks various websites and other channels on YouTube and then compiles that information for a weekly update, which he started with, and more recently he started doing figure reviews. In addition to his YouTube channel, he also has a Facebook page and a website, articulationtimes.com, which often has pictures and stuff that, would be at better resolution than you would find on YouTube. Now, John, I started watching your videos back in either October or November. Back then you were just doing your weekly updates. My initial impressions were, I was pretty impressed, because you have a very slick opening sequence. You have a very professional sounding name, which, when I was first looking at it, I was thinking that you're probably a pro reviewer. And the overall operation on some levels felt like this was a side channel for a bigger unit, kind of like what Pop Culture Network does with their YouTube channel. And to a lesser extent, Tomopop. Now, where you function as sort of a aggregate news source, we're just bringing in these figure news from various other places, and I guess you aren't able to attend a lot of these events yourself. You're kind of at a disadvantage. So your coverage can't be as timely as some of these other sources, like Pop Culture Net had all of their channel news up like 3-4 days before you for almost everything, and then some of the other channels were also able to pull together a lot of coverage, and second responders brought a whole bunch of other stuff up quick, but you were a little bit behind the eight ball there. Also, as a result, one of the biggest pieces of news, relevant to me at least, was the announcement that Minimates is going to be running a Battle Beasts line, which you didn't touch upon at all. A little disappointed there, but I suppose in the greater scheme of things, it might not be something you're necessarily interested in covering. For the younger crowd, Battle Beasts was a line of minifigures from the 80s, sometime in the early 80s, I think. Whereas like these little animals in battle armor, then when you touch this one little sensor pad, kind of like one of those little mood rings or things, but it would display a symbol on it, and I used to love those as a kid. But they're bringing them back now through the Minimates line. Pop Culture Net had a quick video on that. In part, mostly because Pop Cult was able to actually attend the event, and they were able to get some of the promotional materials, such as a demo figure, which looks nothing like the traditional Minimates line. It's just really heavily sculpted. But the bigger point here is just the fact that there's a lot of coverage you can't reasonably do, as I presume you're a one-man operation, as opposed to like some of these other groups who are a bunch of guys who kind of contribute all their information to this same thing. And that's why I feel that your weekly coverage, which isn't as time sensitive, is a much bigger asset to yourself and to all your viewers. Which, by the way, I probably would like to see a lot more on the weekly coverage, because there's so much happening at any given moment, and sometimes your summaries are kind of brief, and I know that you probably know that there's more going on, and even things like when you're reporting on what were those? They were doing some Twilight Zone lines, some other stuff. You had an initial report on it, but then there was more content later on that you made available on the website, and you were aware of, that you could have just quickly tossed on to the end of one of your things. It's just like a little quick status update, it's a little bit of filler. So yeah, I would totally recommend that you just beef your weeklies up a little bit with that kind of information. Now, you've recently started doing actual figure reviews. Now, that's probably a more iffy area, because I've noticed that a few people have called you to task on some factual inaccuracies, which kind of hurts your image a little bit. I mean, that sort of stuff's bound to happen from time to time, but it's really just something you should watch out for if you're trying to position yourself as being a really huge individual. Also, one of the cooler areas would be if you were able to give us more information, like, say, obscure lines, like if you did some retro stuff, like if you picked a, I don't know, action figure line that ran during the 70s or 80s and just gave us a brief overview with some shots of the thing, a little history lesson for some people who either might have been young at the time or weren't around. And those are about all the comments that I have for your general channel. Facebook-wise, I don't really use Facebook, so kind of a wash there. But I've noticed from whenever I've visited it, it's more of a repository of images, which is a pretty good use, especially because a lot of the articles from your actual website link into it. Now, the website, I've got a few qualms about. First of all, when I was going through some of the more recent stuff for the Masters of the Universe, I'd click on the images, and the images were actually smaller on the page before I clicked on it to enlarge it. I don't get what that's about. The other thing is that your website doesn't really offer a lot of unique content or have a completely different selling point. I noticed that you have a lot of video reviews up from a lot of the top reviewers from YouTube, or a lot of the people we all know and we all watch anyway, which is exactly the problem. We all know about those reviewers, like the Review Spot, your Sean X Longs, your action figure experts, because we're all subscribed to them already, and So the links to them and their videos, while nice, probably aren't as vital as other content that you do provide us already, such as pictures and just short blurbs on various lines coming out soon. And that's one thing I do want to see more of. I want to see more written content because, if you've got a website, a large portion of that should be just written content. Because that will offer us something a little bit different than what you already offer us on the channel. Plus, I was looking at the little Biff Ban Pow link, because you'd previously mentioned that some of the Twilight Zone figures and stuff were getting kind of retro figures made through it. And you had some images showcased there, and then a link to the site, obviously. But for casual viewers, it might be a little bit easier if you just had a list of all the items that they're offering, or just showed us all the pictures. It wouldn't take much longer than what you'd already done. If it wouldn't be too much of a hassle. Some sites are probably a little bit more time-consuming than others when you're looking through the content. Other big thing for layout in terms of your site, it would kind of help if you had sort of a delineation between what kind of content you have for some of the links. I don't know, if you had two columns, one column with just the video reviews, one column with photos and text, or if you had just a different image color background for each cell. You have all your video reviews or videos from other people be blue, then all your photos be green or some other color, to make content a bit easier to find. Also, instead of having just the first 13 or 14 most recent stories, it'd be helpful if you went back, say, 25 or 30, just so we could get more. It's easier to look through that stuff when you have a lot more information than when you're looking through the archives and it's just text links. Plus, that would give you a little bit extra room on for sidebar ads, which, can't hurt. At any rate, I like what you're doing right now, and the biggest area for improvement is probably just the website, just fixing the layout and making content more accessible, bulking it up a little bit. But best of luck to you, John. I wish you nothing but success and hope your channel continues to grow.